You know, there is a thought when you heard the minimum wage debate, you know, big companies can afford to pay more, McDonald's can afford to pay more, but no one ever thinks that not all businesses are big. There are a lot of small businesses, independent businesses that can ill afford, for example, a doubling in the minimum wage, no matter your views on this particular subject. So when they hear that now the second punch could be coming when it comes to new rules on overtime and that a lot of their salaried workers, maybe most if not all of them, are going to have to be paid overtime, something that salaried workers earning up to $23,000 a year don't have to worry about, or their bosses don't have to worry about. But by effectively doubling that and saying, yeah, well, those businesses do have to worry about it, whatever your views on whether that's the right thing to do or not, someone has to pay that bill. And Juanita Duggan, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, its president and CEO, that is something that alarms them, I would imagine, Juanita, right?
Absolutely. We're very concerned about the overtime rule. I was talking to one of my members yesterday in Pennsylvania. He had done the math, and he told me that it was going to completely wipe out his profit.
Now, what they do, and I know they did this with the health care law, where they tried to stagger their workers' time schedule so they weren't working the requisite number of hours where they had to pay the health care. A lot of them did the same when it came to hiking the minimum wage. In some of the states, it's been dramatically hiked. So to shift schedules around or cut back operations or just outright lay off and fire people. But this is a trickier nugget. What happens?
Well, I think what happens is that people who were previously upwardly mobile within small businesses are now going to become, you know, hourly wage earners, and they're going to have to, they won't be on the management track. I think this is really bad for workers, and as I said, one of our members told me yesterday that it was going to wipe out his profits.
You know what I'm surprised about? I read these numbers, and across the board, small businesses have been getting rid of workers more than taking them on. Not anomaly, something we haven't seen since at the time of the meltdown. That is not a great harbinger of things to come. What do you think of that?
It's absolutely not a growth policy for government to be expanding regulation at this point in time. When you see the regulations that are coming out and you look at them holistically, minimum wage, paid leave, healthcare costs rising, you see an onslaught to small business. They don't have armies of lobbyists, lawyers and compliance officers to help them with this kind of compliance. And it is really hurting them. They're very pessimistic. Our optimism index is now at very low levels. We're looking at the same levels that were during the 1990s recession. So clearly small business has not shared in the recovery. You
know, what's odd, too, is that they're lumped in with business, period. And when given protests we've seen in Chicago and elsewhere, they're deemed the rich. And unlike a lot of those big companies that don't pay that top advertised rate of 39.6% or 35%, the fact of the matter is a lot of these small independent business guys have no choice. That is the rate they pay, but no one cries for them.
Well, NFIB cries for them. That is our job, is to make sure that they have a voice.
Is anyone hearing it?
Tell the
Are
auto
any of the
mechanic
candidates offering stuff that you find appealing? Is Donald Trump offering anything that you find appealing?
Some of the top-line things he's discussed are things that have been NFIB's positions for years. He talks about a single corporate rate across, you know, C Corp, S Corp. That is something NFIB strongly believes in. You know, he has said he's not a fan of Obamacare. NFIB was the organization that tried to overturn Obamacare in the Supreme Court. We remain opposed to it. I think you've seen that Obamacare is now in a death spiral with the insurance companies pulling out. These are not growth policies for small business.
We'll watch closely. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Neil, thank you so much for having me.